5 a.m. as we continue this morning. Now, here is a thought in terms of the economy, in terms of how the various sectors of the economy have been affected as a result of the pandemic and COVID 19. And the key question here is, should a BEE be the key factor when it comes to providing relief, when it comes to providing aid? And it seems to be quite a major point of discussion in the country in terms of providing preferential treatment as far as relief is concerned. We know as South Africans, we are all affected, we are all impacted by this pandemic, by COVID 19, and right across the many sectors of the economy, people from cross section of society that are affected and that have been impacted. And even to the extent that even now, with the talk of the vaccine rollout, there seems to be some sort of rumblings as far as preferential treatment to BEE companies in terms of the rollout of the vaccine. Now, the one industry that has been affected badly has been the tourism factory, and we've heard about the 1.2 billion rand strong tourism equity fund that was launched by President Cyril Ramaphosa, and this was on Tuesday to try and boost the tourism sector. But there definitely are issues, and we joined on the line this morning by Manny de Freitas, who is the Democratic Alliance Tourism spokesperson. Manny, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Good morning to you and the listeners.
Yes, now, many obviously there are reservations on the part of the Democratic Alliance in terms of this tourism equity fund that it will not meet its intended targets of boosting South Africa's tourism industry.
Yes, I mean, if you look at the historic evidence on how funds in general have been handled by this government, you'll find that it either gets pilfered, the majority of the funds, so the money gets pilfered, gets maladministered and badly used. But over and above that, even if we had an efficient government, a government that was able to spend the money correctly and take it to the beneficiaries for which it was intended, we still would not be getting our bang for our buck. And what I mean by that is there's over a billion rand available in this fund, and it will go to certain people. And it's kind of a limiting thing because they're making it government's making it sound as if it's an end or be all where you give some kind of capital injection into tourism industry. And what we actually need is rather to get money directed in different ways. I'll give you an example. If there is a site that tourists are interested in, many tourists sometimes don't go to these sites simply because they have no access to it. There's no road that is possible to and no access to a place like that. Now, if they started to looking at infrastructure and looking at access to roads, access to water and electricity, those kind of things would go much longer because there'll be a wider net of people benefiting. Whereas now you're only looking at certain people that may or may not get the money and would be used by limited resources. So what government needs to do is to make sure that our tourism sites, our tourism attractions are maintained and built on and revived. And in doing that, we would gain so much further because through tourism, you'd be driving the economy automatically, where this is a very closed, narrow net of money that's going to only certain people.
Yes, obviously, I've seen a report where you are on record of saying that the government solutions for tourism remains one-dimensional. And one of the critical issues here at this point in time is when we look at the tourism industry and this intended 1.2 billion equity fund, it's more about improving participation of Black South Africans in the tourism sector, but also at the same time raises many questions with regards to some of the other issues, the related issues, because we know that this is a sector that has suffered badly. Many millions of jobs obviously have been lost as a result of that. And to find a solution raises obviously a number of questions as to what the government's true intent is behind this 1.2 billion equity fund.
Because look, we all agree that absolutely we need more Black participation in the tourism sector, and that needs to grow, absolutely. But the problem is, the irony is the government hasn't understood that actually the biggest destroyer in the last year of jobs, and the sector in general has in fact been the government itself. And of course, by ripple effect, you'll find the majority of people that suffered in the industry were black people. And so that's the big irony. What they should be doing is trying to rebuild the industry. How do you rebuild it? Making sure that sites are attractive, making it easy for tourists, whether they're local or international tourists, can go to sites, make it interesting and attractive. And that's what they should be focusing on. Instead, what they're focusing on is a specific group, which they've listed and stated on their launch on Thursday, to say that only certain people would be welcome to come in. They talk nothing about actually growing the sector itself. The objective is indeed to grow the participation of black people, and that's quite right. But you don't do it by just injecting money to people who are able to already, they a very good chance of already being a plan together and already are of some financial means that they can then submit to the government. What about the participation of people really on the ground? What about the lowly one-person tourist guide, for example, that is already working, has institutional knowledge, has much experience and contributes so much? Those people are automatically cut off. And the way you can help those people really on the ground is by making sure that these tourism sites are not dilapidated, they're maintained, they're attractive for people, so that when we do have visitors from all over the world, we can be proud to take them there, and they will go there, and they will return because we've maintained it, we've made it look attractive and interesting. And I can always, we can always use our own examples. Many of us have travelled either locally or internationally, and we've gone to various tourism sites, and we've been amazed and interested and had great experiences. Now, that wouldn't happen if those sites, if those places we visited were dilapidated, were dirty, were unhygienic, weren't interesting. But certainly the authorities there ensured that took place. And that's my point. That money would be much better directed because you'd be getting a much greater return because more people would be participating in the growth of the sector as well as growing the economy in general.
Many often when we hear government making these types of announcements, and there are always further questions that raised on whether they've thought it through properly, and obviously many boxes that are left unticked, because the key issue is making the announcement is one thing, but have you got all your bases covered? Have you given detail with regard to funds, how they are going to be monitored, and also at the same time to make absolutely sure that there is complete accountability, there is complete transparency when these types of monies are being disbursed.
Well, exactly right. You're 100% correct. None of these questions that you're talking about have been answered in any of the launch, and any of the presentations, and any of the information available on this fund talks about that. I have already submitted to the minister requesting exactly these questions. How is it going to be monitored? How do we make sure that it goes to the correct people? And how do you make sure that those people actually fulfill functions? How do you make sure that those people receiving this money are actually going to contribute to the growth of tourism and growth to jobs, and as the objective is to grow the participation of black South Africans into the sector? These are very unanswered questions. And from my experiences, I don't know if they've thought it through. So it'll be interesting to hear when we receive the replies from the minister. But my other point I want to make is that the ANC have very little difference to the old government pre-94. Because the reality is both governments are obsessed with bean counting, making sure that what is the priority is not the growing of jobs, is not the economy, is not making sure that all South Africans will prosper, but it is bean counting, making sure that the right demographic is in the right place so that everything looks demographically correct. And with that obsession, everything else seems to be forgotten. And we can achieve both. That's my argument. The demographics will come along if we make sure that everybody has an opportunity to grow in, whether it's this sector or any other sector, because only the best, the people that work the hardest, will end up, achieving. And hardworking people are found throughout all demographics. And those that work the hardest will receive the reward. And that's the problem that I have with this government. They seem to be obsessed with the bean counting and not looking at the important things that really will create wealth for individuals, for the country, and create more jobs.
Well, Manny, we're going to have to leave it at that. We thank you this morning for your time with us
Thank you.
here on Salam Media. We wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Manny de Freitas, Democratic Alliance's tourism spokesperson, against the background of the 1.2 billion tourism equity fund that was launched by President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Osman's Taj Mahal Spice and Rice. For over 80 years, Osman's Taj Mahal have been perfecting the art of the perfect blend of spices, pure, aromatic, and well